Ah, good thing I was prepared. Well, seems that there's a bunch of dwarfs doing figuration, being extras, a bunch of green dragons and their strange mutated gold counterpart as being racist tassels and whatnot. And yes, indeed, I am, as can be seen by all the mountains and the banking in Swiss. So on this, I'll see you after the intro. So since we are in Swiss with all of those bankers and mountains and chocolate, well, what better than to talk about banking? Now, for the medieval period, most people think of banking as of first there's nothing, then at some point Templar shows up, and then modern banks. This is reinforced by the very modern banking style of video games that tend to have a medieval feeling yet more modern elements to them. Now, these are in fictional worlds with fictional races, so it's perfectly fine. But now for all things actually went on, well, let's start with the evolution of banking in the medieval era. So first of all, we start before the medieval era itself during antiquity. At first, well, to get money to do something, you needed to be financed by the government or someone rich, and of course that gave in to patronage, which in French is called mécénat, which comes from mécène, who is a Roman that was known to be a patron of the arts. Now, eventually also there were people working to exchange or make equivalents of coins from different nations. Well, at the point when you of course got several nations with various coins, but that is more of a side thing. For the medieval era in itself, patronage continued all along, but we also started to see moneylenders, and with them, of course, all various elements of lending, including the infamous loan sharks who will break your leg if you don't pay them the 200% markup on what they gave you. And that led to a bunch of problems, but I'll talk to it back in when I speak of usury, which was a big taboo at the time. Now, eventually crusades have happened. That leads to two things. Italian merchant getting really rich because the Holy Land went from being that backwater of the region of the Muslim world that they kind of ignored to being the cornerstone of trade between three continents. Now, during the Crusade, we also got the Templars. At first, there were only a bunch of soldiers who protected the pilgrims, but after, eventually, they got some means to do greater logistics. Why? Because they were given lands and a lot of things by other people, and over time, they ended up getting some major means. Of course, I allude to the so-called treasure of the Templars. So they had a bunch of money, but not so much that you'd think. It was mainly land that they had, and with that land they made food that supported themselves and could be sold to get the money to support their other efforts. So I know that it inspired a lot of things, many myths and things going from bad movies to good children books, but nonetheless, they weren't that sporage, but they still had money, and that led them to have the fiscal means to go. We protect pilgrims, we also protect their money. So since money is hard to carry around, we will take in, and with our super means, we'll make sure that there can be the good transfer, and you as your letter of mark, which basically is the ancestor of a check. And with that, they allow people to keep their money safe, and therefore being able to travel more safely. Now, later side note, they could not lend someone's money. Someone's money was his own, and that would tie up to something later on. So they protected people's money. From then on, they ended up protecting, taking care of the money of major entities like states, such as having the Treasury of France. They also ended up making lands of their own to do things such as saving army. Your major Christian army needs a ransom of 100,000 gold piece. Here's the cash, pay us back when you can. And their ending was simply, you pay us back, no usury, no markup, no nothing. Now eventually this disappeared because Philip IV decided to be a greedy asshole. And of course he had the idea from Longshanks, who invented the hold up, thus becoming the only patron of such bandits as the Daltons. But back to subject, Templars disappear. After that, Italian merchants take over, and as trade continued to progress in Europe, other merchants take over. Why? Because they got a lot of money, and they got some logistical means, the buildings and everything, so they can do lendings. They can lend a lot of money to finance a lot of projects. They can hold money for people because they have the means, and they continue the path to modern banking. Of course, not being a religious order, they start doing usury, and then after the medieval period, then everything else come in. So the interest rates, the speculation. Of course, it's not quite clear, but at some point they of course start using the money that people put in their institution to do lends and other things. And of course, one of the reasons banks nowadays can give you money is that they lend your money to other people, then they pay you back part of the interest. Speculation, capitalism eventually happened in late 18th, early 19th century with Adam Smith, and with speculation, lots of other things. And between that and the appearance of modern states, we eventually get to modern banking. And that's roughly the evolution of banking. Medieval period was far from the modern thing, but it did give us letters of marque, started the idea of having the proper institutions, and so on. Now, for usury, what is usury? It's the fact of lending monies from someone to get more money. It was considered immoral. It was a big taboo, and Christians weren't allowed to do that during the medieval period. Some still did, especially toward the end. But in theory, it was forbidden, and it was seen as an operation of charity. To give a rough idea of the scale of charity, at first you got true charity, where you give and expects nothing of return. You don't even tell about it. It's I'm gonna give 1,000 to Ukraine to help to the Red Cross. I speak to no one knows I made the gift. That's true charity. I didn't get anything, I just gave to help someone. Then You've got interested donations that still have a moral virtues. For example, let's say there's a praying order. I'm a medieval aristocrat, I've got money, I pay them to pray for the soul of someone that I knew wasn't perfect, and I want that person to get a better chance in the afterlife. These guys are really early, so maybe they can help up. Or I know that there's a charity, so I'm gonna do that charity in the name of someone I care of. I give money to a virtuous cause, so I help people. I do something that the problem is that since I start gaining from it, either by having someone I like having praise, or that I gain praise or help for my own soul. I do something, but I still get a bit of a gain, but I still do something virtuous, so it's not as good as the previous true charity, but it's still good. And by the way, indulgences are a bit of a twisted version of it. I have to go into it later. Then, after that, you've got patronage. I give money to people who need it, but it's to do something that I want. So, you do a piece praising me. You do something that I know will look good on my own or something. You help people, but people that need it, but you gain suffering, and it's very interested, and it's not so virtuous. So at that point, there's no way of calling it charity. It's just interested thing, but you're still helping someone, so still okay. And by the way, giving state money to pseudo charity that pays your family, that is no charity, that's corruption. So back to the scale of charity. Then you've got the lending, where you need the help. I'm gonna give you money, but you have to pay it back. Now you're still helping someone, but you're getting your stuff back, so it's not charity, and it's really in the project, but you don't make money out of it. So it's a bit icky for the medieval person, but it's still okay. Then you've got usury. I lend you money, you pay me, and an extra something. That is seen as the version of charity. It's making money out of giving money, so it's really unclean. It's seen as immoral. It's a big taboo, but people who dwell in money still doing because it pays. And sadly, Jews didn't have any moral taboos about it, so they were mostly the ones doing it. Other people, as I said, eventually ended up doing it, but the fact that they did it, and that some of them sadly were loan sharks, ended up to all of them getting the loan shark reputation, and that sadly ended up with a lot of pogroms, because sadly, when your banker is a part of an easily to target group, and you're a big brute with weapons and whatnot, the best way to get rid of your debt is to get rid of your creditors. So if the person and family you owe money to isn't around, do you really owe money? It's sadly the awful logic that led to many pogroms and other awful actions, that even if they're saying that medieval era is not as bad as people think, awful stuff like that still happen. It's important to mention it. There's always the exceptions. Now, back to the scale. After usury, then you've got interest rates. So, you owe me money over time, so the longer it takes you to pay, the more money you owe me. That is seen as charging people for time, and making people for time, well, it's really a next level of downright evil. Why? Because time only belongs to God, and making people pay for time is stealing God. And that's actually something that Christians and Muslims agreed upon at that time, that charging time is stealing from God, and that is seen as basically downright evil. That taboo went away with the steps that led to the birth of capitalism. That's something to think about. And that's pretty much the scale. At one extreme, and you've got true charity that you don't even talk. At the other, you make people pay for time, and if they don't reach the time quota, well, you seize their stuff and start being an asshole. So, in conclusion, modern banking didn't happen in the medieval period. It was a long process, but medieval period did give birth to people having the logistical means to support proto-banking, gave birth to letters of marque, and another bunch of things. And from the Renaissance of art, that's when it started to truly emerge. And of course, all of that takes place on a scale of morality about charity, where you've got true charity and then progressively less moral things that lead to the interest rates that we are so familiar with nowadays. And would also go with speculation, but speculation is something for another time. On this, I've got Mage Guild to visit, so a good day and until next time.
Galilei, I will stop you. Okay, so first of all, aren't you a few episodes late? And second, what are you doing here? Do you know how hard it is to come out of hell serving someone to fight that guy with portals and defame him? Okay, so I guess I will have to use my ultimate weapon. What? Your village idiot alcohol? No, an actual debate face to face where you can't use sophisms like in your pseudo magazines. What? No. My sophism! For his. Well, as they say, sono pazzo questi romani. And let's see.
Vive les quenottes! Quenottes qui croquent, qui grignotent, quand l'appétit va, tout va.